Hi. In this video we'll cover the key aspects in how to beat loose-aggressive players. We'll cover what signifies this particular player type, how to identify this player type at your table without the use of any heads-up display or other poker tracking software. I'll talk about the importance of note-taking in this, and of course how you can exploit this player type to maximize your profits. We'll also discuss some other considerations. What signifies a loose-aggressive player is that he plays a wide range of hands, including weaker hands. He plays his hands aggressively, meaning his bluffs, his draws, and his value hands. This player likes to be aggressive when shown signs of weakness, and bad loose-aggressive players tend to overplay their value hands. For example, you can see this player type re-raise all in on the flop with second pair or a weak top pair. So, how do you identify a loose-aggressive player at your table without the use of any poker tracker software? You look at hands that go to showdown, including hands that you don't play. Look for hands where a player holds a weak hand or a draw which he has played aggressively. Look for a high frequency of hands played. Look for pre-flop 3-bet folds or 4-bet folds. A 3-bet is a re-raise and a 4-bet is a re-raise. Now, let's look at an example where I identify a loose-aggressive player at my table. Small blind, min raise, and the big blind 3-bets to 225. John Hippo here in small blind calls, and the flop is Jack 5-7 with 2 hearts. Small blind checks and big blind bets half pot, after which the small blind re-raises to 535. Big blind folds and small blind shows deuce 4 of hearts. This is a great opportunity for us to take a note on this player calling a 3-bet out of position with a very weak hand and also playing this hand aggressively. This is how you take notes using the Party Poker software. Just click the little arrow under the player avatar, select player notes, type your note in. As you can see, I consider this player to be very loose-aggressive, and I take notes on what happened in this particular hand. Make sure you click save, and there you go. Let's have a look at how you can exploit a loose-aggressive player. First of all, you want to widen the range of hands which you play for value. This means which hands you open raise with, re-raise with, and call with. To give you an example, say you've seen an opponent bet 3 streets with second pair. You can easily widen your calling range down to all top pairs against this player. Against good loose-aggressive players, you can also add some bluffs to your 3-betting range. This means that you 3-bet hands which you're either happy to get it all in with, or hands that you are happy to fold with if your opponent 4-bets you. This is what makes it a polarized range. Normally this range will consist of pocket aces down to pocket jacks, ace king, ace queen for hands that you want to get it all in with pre-flop, and then good hands to bluff with are hands such as ace 5 suited, ace 4 suited, and ace 3 suited. These hands are good because they have an ace blocker. So for example, there are 16 combinations of ace king. If you hold an ace, there are only 12 left for your opponent to hold. These hands are also good because in case your opponent calls your 3-bet, you can still flop a strong draw, a flush, a straight, or a pair better than his. Against very loose-aggressive players, it's also good to show weakness post-flop. For example, if your opponent tends to play his draws passively, betting the flop and the turn, and then checking to him on the river when all the draws miss, very often allows him to bluff off the river. Same thing if your opponent bets into you on the flop, you can just call the flop, call the turn, and then raise the river. Most of the time you will see your opponent bluff off his entire stack. If you're out of position, the same thing applies, except you will be check calling and check raising. Let's have a look at an example where I exploit this loose aggressive opponent, which I showed you in the previous example. I pick up ace queen offsuit in the small blind. The loose aggressive player limps from middle position. This is a spot where I would raise hands much weaker than ace queen offsuit for value. I would say all the way down to low suited aces, queen 9 offsuit. When the flop comes ace king rainbow, this is a good spot to either check to your opponent to let him bluff, or bet small to get value from a lot of weak hands which might check this flop. In this case, our opponent has all the pocket pairs in his range. He has a lot of aces in his range. He has a lot of kings in his range. In this case, I choose to bet to allow him to build a bigger pot for us than he would if we only check called. So I go ahead and bet small, meaning half pot in this case. The loose aggressive player makes a small raise, and here's a very good spot to show some weakness by simply calling. When the turn hits, we can check to him again to let him put more money into the pot with his weak hands. He bets 2 into 642, which is too small for us to call, and hoping to get all the money in by the river. We go ahead and raise to get more money into the pot. There's also some draws out there. If he has jack 10 of clubs here, for example, he'll happily call it off against the raise. So we make a fairly small raise, and John Hippo re-raises us again. Against this player type, we're very happy to get it all in here, of course, expecting to be up against a lot of worse hands. John Hippo calls off with a king, and we win the pot. A few other considerations to keep in mind when playing against loose aggressive players are that they can be aggressive pre-flop and passive post-flop, and vice versa. So if someone's passive, that means they only raise when they have a really good hand. If you see a loose aggressive player limp call almost all of his hands pre-flop and then play them very aggressively post-flop, you'll be happy to get it all in post-flop with a top pair, decent kicker. But if you never see him raise pre-flop and all of a sudden he limps re-raises against your raise, you can pretty safely assume that he has a good hand and make a big fold. Take notes on the levels of looseness. For example, if you think a player is a very loose, bad player, or if he is a regular at these tables who has a balanced approach to his game. Continue to make reads and to take notes on players, as the more reads you'll get, the more reliable they will be.